20 years after D-Day, eventual reconciliation, and the long-term effects of our. I am not seeking advice. My script is written. The ink is dry. All I hope to accomplish with this post is to give the folks considering us something to think about. For me, D-Day happens to coincide with 9/11. Shitty timing, right? My wife came clean that morning before all the terrible events of that day happened. We were so wrapped up in our own personal trauma we didn't even know what was happening in the world outside until late in the day. I did not see it coming. I had no idea. We'd had rough patches. We'd fought like two sworn enemies at times. We got past all of that somehow and were in a pretty good place when she told me. As most of you know, it felt like my heart was physically ripped from my body. She did not tell me out of any sense of shame or regret. She says she did, but I believe the reason was she thought she had a STD, and was afraid I did too at that point. We didn't. I loved her. God knows I loved her without condition or reservation. I trusted her completely. That morning I woke up feeling lucky. That night I felt nothing. I was dead inside. I did not ask her to leave the house. I did not share her bed. I ignored her completely. I said not a word for. I don't even remember how long. We each lived alone together in a haunted house. She cried. She tried to talk. After shock came anger, hatred, just the worst kind of venom to poison my soul. I wanted her dead. I dreamed of it. She had not tears enough for what she had done to me. I realized later I was following the stages of grief check by check. I felt so worthless, unloved. Even my wife chose someone else over me. I entertained thoughts of suicide. I actually planned my disappearance where I would just vanish in such a way as to be presumed dead and start over again as someone else, somewhere else. Planning for this was actually pretty far along and ended up being a distracting mental exercise. In time I got past all this and found some way to talk to her and interact with her again. Eventually we reconciled. It has been 20 years. I am certain she never cheated again. She has done all she could to be the best wife she could be. But I'm not okay. It's bad luck that D-Day occurred on such a memorable day. It means I'll never forget it. It never gets lost in the obscurity of the 300-some-odd unremarkable days of every year. I still remember clearly how it felt. I still have the mind movies. The beautiful, special and unconditional love I had for her died that day. I've never gotten it back. What we have now is a shell of what it once was. The choices we both made, her for cheating, me for staying, are still between us years later. Our relationship is good where it was once great. Polite where it was once loving. It's stained. Tainted. 20 years of memories has not washed that away. Sometimes I still break down and cry like a child for what was lost. I never speak to her about this. Never will. She has done all she could to make amends. I accepted her back. It would be terribly unfair to her to continually punish her for sins I've told her I've forgiven. I have forgiven her. That did not put my broken heart back together. Reconciliation is possible. But you will never get back to where you were. It will always be there. You will never forget what they did to you. You will never forget how you felt that day. Every time you look into your spouse's eyes you will remember. If you choose to reconcile with your WS, I hope yours will be a success story. But I think you will find that even your success will not be all you hope. Maybe a clean break would have been better. Redditor's reactions, Story 2 after. Redditor 1, this should be required reading for anyone who comes here asking if R is possible. Your story is sad, but unfortunately, too realistic. When a WS cheats, it destroys part of the BS. It destroys the trust of the marriage. It introduces poison into the relationship. It is possible to R, but as you found out, it takes a lot of work, and the relationship is never the same. The magic is gone, the WS is no longer the person that the BS married. It is a mistake to think the old relationship can be resurrected. It can't. It's dead, murdered by the infidelity. The best you can do in R is to establish a new relationship, and even that will be emotionally difficult. Redditor 2, mine cheated on me very early in our relationship. She didn't tell me until right before we got married. I chose to forgive and married her anyway. It bothered me terribly for a very long time. It took more than 20 years for me to get to the point where I rarely thought about it. I did tell her how it still bothered me, more than once, but that only made things worse for us. MC didn't help much either. Finally I reached a point where I felt safe again. After all this time, 28 years of her being faithful, surely I could trust her. Nope. 6 months ago I discovered she has been having an affair for almost a year. Once a cheater, always a cheater and all that. There is no starting over for us this time. I salute your conviction in solidarity, bother. I know what you've been through and how hard it's been. I certainly hope you don't suffer my fate. Redditor follow-up, Jesus. I'm so sorry. This is my biggest fear. When you found out about this most recent affair, did it make you feel like you wasted the last 20 years in reconciliation? I really want to successfully reconcile with my WH, and he's doing everything right, but I'm terrified that in the future when I'm comfortable and confident that we are reconciled that I'll find out about another affair and regret not leaving the first time, you know. Redditor 3, thank you, this has reaffirmed that I have made the right decision with moving on with my life. Redditor follow-up, sometimes I wonder what if he actually changed, what if I was actually meant to guide him through life. Would I be stupid enough to test it? Sometimes, I think so. Posts like this help. Thank you, Op. Story 2, Karma came for supper, stayed for dessert. So I don't think I've ever made a post on this forum, mostly tossed my own 2 cents here and there, but I felt this deserved its own post. Feel free to keep reading if you want to hear my story, and if you've ever wondered if karma is a thing, and if our cheating spouses actually ever change. So as a quick little background, my 43M, spouse 38F had an affair 6 years ago with the husband of my, at the time, co-worker. We had all become close friends and partied a lot together. The discovery of the affair and my WS realization that her AP wasn't going to leave his wife threw her into a spiral. Ran away from our home, left me grief-stricken, with 2 kids 7 and 4 at the time and no way to contact her. Well, a week later she calls me at 5 a.m. crying and begging me to come get her. I do. I had gone on stress leave from work at this time. I end up at a seedy motel picking her up where she had holed up for the week, sleeping with every drug dealer she knew to feed her cocaine habit. This was a new issue. She was a mess. I get her home and call my friend who is a nurse to come and check on her. She's in the throes of drug-induced psychosis, gotta get her to the ER and get her detoxed. I leave my kids with family, thank God we had just moved to a town to be close to them, get her to the hospital, and stay next to her side for close to 4 days while she's detoxing. I don't know if I even felt a single feeling during this period. Finally get her home and she basically spends 3 weeks in bed. I'm pretty much a zombie, doing my best to just make sure the kids are fed and to school and back. Unbeknownst to me, she's still in active communication with her AP at this time, through of all things, the Pinterest messaging system. Anyway, her family convinces her she needs to go to rehab, but of course, it can't be any rehab. She decides on a $20,000 a month facility. I refuse to pay that, so she conned her grandmother to do it. She ends up there, 1.5 weeks in. She calls me and says she wants a divorce because she has learned that all her actions are my fault. So okay, I'll tell the kids, who are already losing their minds, that mom isn't coming back. Well, she gets discharged, realizes being on her own is tough and begs me to come back, and that we can fix things. Me, looking at 16 years of marriage with someone I truly loved and have 2 beautiful children with, decides, yeah, let's try. I convinced myself it was the drugs that enabled all this behavior, and now that she's clean I'll have my wife and mother of my children back. Looking back, this was the one thing I would have done differently. Fast forward 18 months of trying to reconcile. She refuses to put any work into and figures that because I was willing to work on our marriage, that meant that all was forgiven and water under the bridge. As every betrayed spouse knows, that's not how this works. At the 18-month mark, I give up and ask her to leave. She easily agrees. Well, within a week of her moving out, I get a message from her old AP's wife that they are communicating again, and that he just told her he's leaving her. While they are all on a family vacation in Jamaica, no less. So there's marriage number 2 destroyed. I also get to find out that they have been communicating for the length of our reconciliation period. That was a gut punch. They move in together immediately, and just like that, my children have a stepdad and his son has a stepmom. Abrupt and jarring, don't even begin to describe what it was for all of us. Present time, 4 years later, and the crux of post. Their relationship has imploded. It was always toxic. He had anger issues, she wants everything her own way, cops would get involved, which would then get me involved because of the kids. Silver lining, the majority of it was never around my kids. They say a few arguments, but that's it. She's now kicked him out because she found out he was seeing some 23-year-old girl behind her back. But not to be outdone, she'd been sleeping with his best friend and is now trying to date him. This of course has thrown him right off the ledge, and she's now got a restraining order against him. The cops being called multiple times to her new man's house has caused him to be evicted. I get to sit and watch this all and just shake my head. I'm far enough along that I'm not shouting with glee over this, but I will admit to some petty giddiness. I'm safe and happy, my kids are safe and happy, and the consequences of 6 years of SIT decisions are coming home to roost. Redditors' reactions, story 3 after. Redditor 1, wow, just wow. Sorry you went through this. Are you divorced? You need to turn this into a series, man. You ticked off about every box on the crazy meter. Op answer, oh yeah, divorced 2.5 years now. Forgot to add that her drug shenanigans and then a year off work for her also put us through bankruptcy. I could probably do a full post for every year of the last 6 if I wanted to. Should have documented more. Redditor 2, the sad reality is your kids know more than they let on. If you know, then they know even more. Her toxicity will affect your kids in their own relationships, sadly. And you will have to be the one to help pick up the pieces because she's a toxic mess. It's really not fair because her behavior will cause a lifetime of insecurities in your kids. And she still makes no efforts to change and immediately jumps into another toxic relationship. Do your best to help your kids see that their mother isn't a healthy person. It's a difficult lesson for a kid to learn. Answer: absolutely. My son is now 12 and he's starting to get pretty exasperated with his mom. But still very, very loyal. Won't say a bad word against her. All I can do is set the best example for my children in 50% of the time they are with me. Redditor 3, never take back a cheater. Redditor 4, the Pinterest messaging system. What the cinnamon toast FCK. Of all the details, this one in particular just really stood out. Like, I've read a lot of crazy details on this sub, but there is something so pernicious about this one. Like, I'm imagining her committing adultery right next to pins of Bale Age hairstyles and mid-century modern coffee tables. The sheer juxtaposition of these images is like a tragic comedy. Like, it's funny in a really ducked-up way. And I'm really sorry I'm contemplating the darkness in this as tragic humor. But, FCK. Pinterest. It's like the definition of her being absolutely pathetic. Answer: right. It's one tiny detail that I think will always stick with me. Probably always be suspicious of a prolific pinner, ha ha ha. And don't worry, I see the humor and it is dark, but I can still chuckle at the absurdity of it all. I've relayed the story, in even more detail, verbally before. But typing it really was a little eye-opening for me. Story 3, it's time for me to tell my story. My late 30s wife, mid-30s, and I have been married for going on 16 years. We have 4 children together who range in age from 14 through 5. We have been through so much together. I remember when we were young, I lost my job because of poor decisions that young people make, and we had to move out of our apartment and into a travel trailer for about a year. I remember going to the grocery store with the last few dollars to my name, just hoping we would be able to get a pack of hot dogs and a loaf of bread so we could eat that night. I was prepared to grab them and run out the door if the taxes brought the price over what I had available. I vowed never to get that low again. I always felt blessed that my wife stuck with me through that. Fast forward to today and I have a successful career, make 6 figures, and we have a big beautiful house in a nice suburb. My wife hadn't worked in years, but we had talked and decided it would be good if she got a part-time job. The extra bit of money would be helpful with the price of everything on the rise. I was also excited for her to be able to socialize with adults instead of being locked up with the kids all day. She filled out applications, typically for cashier positions at retail locations. When she would get nervous about an interview, I would tell her that she was going to do great. They will see in you what I see in you, and they will love you. She got hired on as a cashier at a hardware retailer. I told her, remember, we don't need this job. You don't have to take any asset from anybody. She adjusted very fast to her new job and I was very proud of her. 2 months later, I found out that the person I loved more than anything else in life was having an affair. It took less than a month for her to throw away 16 years and 4 children. I didn't actually catch her. I had strong suspicions because of some things not adding up. She resisted at first, but eventually she confessed. This was about 3 a.m. that this happened. We talked for a little bit, then I had to leave for work at 4:30 a.m. Driving to work and being there was the hardest time I have ever had in my life. The depression was severe. When I got home 12 hours later, we had a talk. I told her to go North Carolina with the person and quit her job, so she would not see him anymore. She texted him that it was over and she would not contact him anymore. When she did that, I saw a great sadness wash over her face. So let me tell you about him. He is a supervisor at this retail store. He's 5'8", 41 years old, he bleaches his hair, looks like an aging troll doll going through a midlife crisis. He is small but has a lean muscular build as he lives at gym while he's not working retail. He is the kind of scum who targets a married mother and keeps sexually harassing her until he found the chink in her armor. When she was in her fog, she defended him by saying he actually is a good person, and he felt bad about what he was doing. I'm 6 feet tall, 245 pounds. I have a big muscular build, but I do hold a little fat that I spend my time and energy providing for a family of 6 and don't allot time or energy to give to the gym. So it hurts that I know that she was obviously turned on by his body. I have so much responsibility, and although I do okay, I will never be able to look like that. The next week or so was spent with her ping-ponging back and forth with who she wanted. She wasn't going to see him or anything, but she would contact him on the phone. I finally stopped doing the pick-me dance and told her she either goes no contact with him or she leaves the house and goes to be with him. I told her she could come over whenever she wants to visit her children, but she wasn't going to live with me and be with him. Fast forward to today, she had been North Carolina with this person. She really seems like the fog has lifted and she sees him for what he is, scum. We have been trying to reconcile. We have been watching videos from Affair Recovery and hope to go through the program when we are able. I do truly believe she is ashamed of what she did, but I understand that whatever caused her to do this lurks inside of her. I am having such a difficult time. When we are together, I typically feel happy to be with her. But many times, especially when I am away from her, the same thought runs through my mind. How could she? Edit, there are many more details I want to give, it's just this post is already long enough as it is. I just want to get advice about anything and everything that pops into your head. It's just so much to process. I will answer any questions that I can. I just want to talk to others to help me work through this SHT. Redditor's reactions. Redditor 1, sorry she did this. Was it emotional or physical or both? Yes, you can blame the other guy, and for the most part cheaters cheat down. But, when she had to decide if it was you or him, the minute of hesitation, I would have ended it there. She is weak and sad to say, she will probably do it again. For one, you took her back, what are her consequences? Sorry. Op answer, it was a PA. I do blame the other guy and I blame her too. She agrees that she is to blame too. I knew about Affair Fog, and she was clearly deep into it. I didn't leave her because of my feelings for her, our history, our children. She knows next time I go straight to a lawyer. Edit, it was both PA and EA to her. I believe she was naive as to what it was for him. Redditor 2, so it only took a month. And she fell so hard it took a week of going back and forth about leaving you for him when you found out. She will do it again, probably with the same guy. Be vigilant. Her first job in a while and she does this with 4 kids at home. Wow. Can she be trusted again? Op answer, the time frame is perhaps one of the most shocking things to me. How was it so easy? I hope she can be trusted again, but she and I both understand that it is a difficult mountain to climb. I try to be vigilant, but when it comes down to it, what can I really do? Redditor 3, sorry dude. It's not that uncommon on the return to work timing. I think Shah MD aren't used to being prey on the meat market again. They go from their world revolving around all things kids and household back to dealing with single, or married, people living adult lives worrying about things outside of the home and kids. Add some anxiety and low self-esteem for not having worked for a while. For the predators out there, they are easy targets. That doesn't excuse your wife's failure to secure her boundaries and just be faithful. You are never going to understand her motives for not. They will be illogical and fantasical. Fantasy really is the biggest factor. It's not what you failed to provide or even how exceptional the AP is. Your wife created a fantasy world in her mind between her and AP. That fantasy made her feel more special and alive. Feed her ego kibbles. She'll need some serious IC to work out why that made sense to her. The bad, it happened so fast. She didn't confess willingly. You are the sensible choice as you come with the kids, house, history, income. Yet she didn't make a clean break. This is the real issue I see you struggling with in the years ahead. Would she have stayed if you didn't outclass him in all things beside being a gym rat with time to spare? What happens if someone else new and sparkly but better than AP makes a play for her? Those doubts never fully go away for a BS post-A even with someone new. The AP will likely make another play for her. Your WW might reach out in moments of doubt. You should make it clear to her that her first action if AP contacts her should be to notify you. Any violation of the North Carolina on her part will be a sign that she's not worthy of our. Best advice I've heard is from Stan Tankin. The couples that come out the other side are the ones where the BS holds their wayward feet to the fire. You took a big step forward on this with you, me or him demand. You probably should take it one step further and get legal advice on what D looks for you. You want R to succeed, but you won't know if your WW is a candidate for R for years. You really won't know if you yourself is capable for years. You are in the stunned phase. Just wait till angry gets his time front and center. I would suggest that you detach a bit from the outcome. Be prepared to risk D rather tolerate a false or make sure you position yourself for that possibility. Don't be afraid to set yourself check-in points like 6 months from now to see where you and your WW are before making a decision. You have to be prepared to continue holding her accountable and expecting better behavior from her. Don't settle for less than all in from her. She doesn't have to be prefect, but she sure as hell better be chasing you, not anyone or anything else. Your family will be better off with you divorced than a half-assed attempt at R. I wish you and your family luck in the coming months and years. None of you but your WW deserve what has happened. Op answer, thank you so much. Your words speak true to my heart. It is my fear, and I've told her too, that I fear that the reason she chose me is because I'm the smart choice. Also, you referring to him as a predator is the same word I used. Yes, it was absolutely predatory. She really believed he cared. She was nothing more than a trophy for his weak ego. This is not me letting her off the hook. What she did was effed up.